On the 20th of March 1870, Leon Rogalski, a Polish Jesuit, arrived in Australia. He had left the English port city of Liverpool some 3 months earlier, on the 20th of December 1869. He was 40 years old. Leon Rogalski was born in 1830, and following the footsteps of his older brother Jan, was ordained as a diocesan priest in 1835 at the age of 25. 4 years later, he was inducted into the army, serving as a military chaplain in northeastern Italy. Perhaps it was this experience of war that led him to seek something more in his life. He joined the Society of Jesus 2 years later in 1861. After entering the Jesuit novitiate, he did further studies and then became a much-loved parish priest. 8 years after joining the Jesuits, he was asked by the Jesuit Superior General, Father Becks, to go to Australia. For some years, the Jesuit Superior General had wished to respond to a request by the Austrian Jesuits, who had arrived in South Australia in 1848, for a Polish chaplain for the growing number of Polish migrants. Somewhat like Francis Xavier, who volunteered to go to India replacing a Jesuit who became sick and could not travel, Rogalski replaced another missionary who had suffered ill health. In this modern time of air travel, it can be hard to imagine this great generosity of Rogalski. To quote from the first reading of the book of Genesis that we have heard today, he was being asked, like Abraham, to leave his country, his kindred, and his father's house, to go somewhere new and totally foreign at the far end of the world. A journey so far away that it was most unlikely he would ever return home. Clearly, he was not a sailor, and he did not enjoy the 3-month trip. He suffered from seasickness, dizziness, and a lack of appetite. He would later quote the Latin proverb, "Qui nescit orare, purgat ad mare." He who would go to sea should learn to pray. And pray he did. With him on the boat were people of different nationalities: Scottish, English, Italian, and Irish. He made friends with one particular group, the Irish. Similar in character and disposition, he later wrote to his brother, "They love us very much." He found with the Irish a mutual understanding. They shared a common faith, where their home countries were controlled by others, and which included the suppression of language and culture. The country of Poland had ceased to exist in 1795, when it was divided between Russia, Austria, and Prussia. A slow and steady wave of Polish immigrants began coming to South Australia for economic reasons, and like the Irish, seeking a new place they could call home. A large group settled near the already established Jesuit community of Seven Hill, and in an area that came to be known as Polish Hill River. The month before he left for Australia, Rogalski visited and prayed in the room where the young St Stanislaus Kostka had lived. He brought to the people of Polish Hill River a devotion towards this young man who had walked some 2,500 kilometres to seek permission to become a Jesuit. Rogalski would travel by ship a much longer distance than the young Kostka, but perhaps in the life of this young man, Rogalski sensed something of a total love and a commitment to the journey he was about to take. His first pastoral responsibility was to the community at Polish Hill River and the building of a chapel in honour of St Stanislaus Kostka. This was completed in less than a year after he arrived. In addition, he taught at Seven Hill in the secondary school, the seminary for the training of diocesan seminarians, and the novitiate and house of studies for Australians wanting to become Jesuits. He heard confession in 3 languages: English, German, and Polish. He was a very busy man. Now, 150 years later, the descendants of those first settlers at Polish Hill River are widely dispersed. What is it that they and we might wish to celebrate today? Firstly, let us remember and celebrate the gift and example of one man who left his home to care and support those who are trying to make a new home in a far distant land. Let us remember and celebrate the many Polish people who have come to make their home in this land. Like Abraham, they have also left much behind. Their faith, language, and culture have now become a blessing for our church and our nation. And finally, let us give thanks for those Jesuits and other chaplains who followed Rogalski and have generously given their lives to the service of the Polish community here in Australia. Like Abraham, we are called to trust God to show and reveal new life for us in this land. Like Peter, James, and John, we are called to listen to Jesus and trust that our friendship and companionship with him can become personal and powerful. May we be encouraged by the example of Leon Rogalski that the faith, generosity, and the love he brought to this land 150 years ago may continue to bear fruit.